Good morning. Is this on? How's the volume? Can y'all hear?
That sounds like it.
Can you hear? Is it coming through? How about this? Can you hear? Okay. We'll go ahead and get started. I appreciate your attendance this morning. Let's open in prayer. Heavenly Father, we pray for your blessing on this meeting. Lord, as we look at this part of the policy of the state of Georgia, I pray, Lord, that you'd give us wisdom, guidance, and understanding, that we would fully grasp the issues before us, Lord, and that you'd enable us by your Holy Spirit to come to the conclusions that are in the best interest of the citizens of the state of Georgia and honoring to your name. And it's in your Son, Jesus Christ's name, that I pray. Amen. Okay. I apologize to all the members of the study committee for not getting you the recommendations earlier. We had this meeting originally planned for 2:30 this afternoon. Then I found out yesterday morning that we were going to go in session at 2 o'clock, and so I had It was my intent in the drafting of these recommendations to take the testimony that we received, take some suggested language from the university system, also from Senator Harrell, who was the author of the bill originally, and also the author of the study committee bill, and also my thoughts on the issue, and try to merge them together. I found out that I was not a very good merger, but anyway, I want to thank Haley Williams from Senate Research for her diligent efforts on this. When I left the Capitol late yesterday afternoon, I had serious doubts of whether we'd be in this meeting or not, but Haley was able to work her magic and hopefully bring this together. I have a draft version before you of the findings. I will say this is open to discussion, and we'll entertain, welcome any of your comments, and also any suggestions that you may make. It's again, it was the best that I could get out in the time frame that I had. But that being said, feel free to express yourself. Bear in mind that this is a recommendation, and this is not the crafting of a piece of legislation. There's much more research that's going to have to go into legislation. There's a lot of unknowns in this. When we're talking about, the major component of this is doing away with the special institution fee, and in doing that, you're talking about having to backfill or find alternate. You have to find an answer for a hole that's about $240 million deep. So this is not a small issue. But we feel like, or I feel like, in crafting the report based on what we heard, this is possible to move toward this, but the solution is going to have to be worked out. But where the solution will be is in the crafting and drafting of the legislation. That being said, I'm going to give you a few minutes to read the report because it's in front of you. And when everybody looks at me with that look, come on, let's go, we'll proceed. Yeah, okay. Yeah. will say this, we also want to acknowledge and recognize Senator Max Burns, who was a longtime fixture in Georgia higher education. Appreciate you being here, Senator.
We definitely have to change, take them off the books on the PPP.
Do what?
The language that says you take them off the books. We never take something off the books. It's just the way it's written on the PPP.
What number is that?
It's
in the,
yeah.
oh, okay.
Just strike the wording and take them off the books.
Where is that?
It's on page, the summary of testimony discussion under meeting 1,
It may be in this.
paragraph 3, line 6, middle of the line.
Usually when you say take something off the books, that's a negative thing.
Okay, I got it.
Just strike it. I mean, looking into certain projects is sufficient.
Summary of testimony, like page 5.
Should I put a
If
sign-up
you
sheet?
will, huh?
I said, should I put a sign-up sheet for people to talk?
If you will, either you or Haley one, go run us some more copies. Get us 5 or 6.
Ashley.
We're gonna have some more copies made. How many people need a individualized copy so we can get a number on it? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
My external affairs director could use one too.
Pardon?
My external
Okay.
affairs director could use one.
He was gonna email me something.
Get us about 8 or 10 more copies of the entire document.
Like Brad Wright. I know Brad from years ago. He lives in that neighborhood.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
But I just want to draw to your attention.
I'd love to.
It's the first week of December, it'll be a Zoom.
Okay.
We're looking to change the plan so that our people are here. We're almost 100% resolution. We've got one school system left, and we really want to rock it.
Yes, I'd love to participate, yeah, and it's something that I need to know more about.
That's why I
because I
thought-
didn't know about it until not too long ago when
It's coming
Fred
up on
did.
its 10th year anniversary. And
Yeah,
knowing-
other people in my caucus knew about it, but I didn't. And
Well, I
so
think that
I've been
that's
teaching
perfect.
myself that, yeah.
Because that'll give a perspective when they're talking about some of the ways we can communicate the value, that you'll be able to tell whether it resonates with you or not as somebody new. But I just want to make sure that your aide has it too, the email, but we just want to make sure that your participation be awesome.
Yeah, okay. And then another issue that we are going to talk about later is, it's my understanding that, I don't know whether this is every institution, but, that, like, kids who have Hope or Zell or something, that they're having to pay their bill first and then get reimbursed by the scholarship.
That should not be the case.
Okay, I think it might be happening some.
Then we'll need to know which institution is doing that. But the normal process is that if all of the grades have been sent to us, and we have them in our system will calculate Hope or Zell eligibility, and then the institution is able to ping that to determine that they can appropriately invoice us.
Okay.
So if it's happening in reverse, then we need to know about it.
It could be a ball like.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. I will find out the details and we can follow up on that.
That'd be perfect, because in some cases it may be that the schools aren't getting the grades to us early enough for, before the schools want to invoice.
Yeah.
And so they may be saying, okay, there's no data there to determine eligibility, so we're going to send the invoice to the
It
student.
could be.
And that could be part of some training that we could do to the schools so that they make sure they get the grades either from
Well, it's good to
either
know
high
it's
school.
not, it's good to know that it's not set up that way. It's
Correct.
supposed to be happening.
It
So
is
if it
supposed
is,
to.
then we'll fix it.
Perfect. I'll let you read again.
Okay.
Thank you. Look forward to your participation.
I look forward to it as well. Thank you. Okay.
Y'all got them?
Yeah, thank you.
Minor edit right here. So this is under the testimony part, it's tuition and fees are 37. So that's in the testimony part.
In the testimony, okay.
Right here,
Show that university to you.
fees and tuition are 37 dollars because it's both.
And
Yeah.
would it be, this says then fees imposed, so would it be
So,
comparative cost
yes.
or
so
comparative
the-
prices, or what would it be, comparative?
So it, when we're talking about we're lower than fees in other 37 states, that data point is talking about our total overall tuition and fees, not just fees.
more efficient in the long run than canceling the meeting and coming back at a later date. So I don't foresee this meeting taking a very long time. I will ask this. I did not plan to take any testimony, but is there anyone here that would like to speak to this issue? We didn't have a sign-up sheet, but if you'd like to speak to the issue, I'll give you a minute or two to speak your mind. Are you done? Go ahead and get finished with it. Go ahead. I'll wait on you. You worth waiting on. Does anybody need a place to set the document too black?
Didn't mean to be short outside, but my head's going to explode today. That's leadership in motion. You'll handle it with grace. Okay. Well, bless you.
It's gonna be
Bless
explosive.
you. Mine's not a leadership. Mine's not a AJC.
We'll leave her as regional Celtic manager.
I know you are. Good to see you.
Sir.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Bless you. Bless you.
Good.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I believe everyone has probably had time to look through this document. I'm not going to read it because you've already read it. I want to say this kind of as an overview. In looking through the fees, we realize that costs are cost. And it really doesn't matter whether you call them fees, tuition, or assessments, or anything else. It's a bottom line that we look at on what the cost of education is, and we looked at it from this. I think one thing that came out in our testimony was that a large number of the fees that are imposed by the university system have to do with the retirement of long-term debt for capital projects that have been built on our campuses. And it's not as easy to address some of the fee issues as you may think. I think the glaring fee that we looked at, and it came out in testimony back during session, was the special institution fee that was initiated in 2009. it was put in place for a good reason. It was a levy to raise revenue because state revenues had plummeted as a result, and I'm talking about FY9. Because state revenues had plummeted because of the recession. And as funding levels have shown, and also as state revenues have demonstrated, we really did not have a true recovery until sometime in FY12, FY13. We had about a 4-year recession in the state of Georgia. All that being said, as we looked at that in 2012, what was instituted to be a temporary backfill for a short-term deficit was made permanent. Today, and one correction we have in our document is, instead of it being a $240 million hole, it's a $230. I was glad to hear that. Now to Billy Hickman, that's just kind of like pocket change, but to most of us, that's a sizable amount of money. So we're glad for that $10 million savings. But as we looked at this, because the special institution fee is actually a general fund revenue source, and it's not dedicated to any particular operation, but it's spread wherever it's needed on the particular colleges and universities. That being the case, it looks to me like, in all honesty, it's more tuition than it is a fee, because it does not have a designated purpose for which it's collected other than to raise revenue. So our approach to this, and what I could distill from the testimony and the comments that were made, is that we really want to address what's known as SIF, Special Institutional Fee. So the majority of this report and the findings address that. We realize that as you look at our institutions, one size does not fit all. And we realize that in eliminating this fee, obviously, since their current cost and obligations probably, I say obligations in terms of maintaining a program, obviously you're going to have additional funding. So we have proposed that the legislature, if they choose to move forward on legislation in this, and the Board of Regents, if they choose to act on this, would not look at a single funding source, but maybe look at a multi-pronged approach. And I think we've identified 3 areas that we feel like are probably the most logical paths to go down. First thing that we would recommend, as I think most of us in business would always recommend, is look at your current expenditures at your individual institutions, look at your programs, and do an evaluation. Is there return on investment? I don't question the fact that many of our institutions, they are providing quality programs. What I think we need to evaluate from a big picture for the good of the state of Georgia is to try to make a determination, does the benefit of the state of Georgia justify the expenditures on these programs? If you have programs that are very sparsely attended, and especially if there are no available jobs in the state of Georgia to any extent, you have to ask yourself, is it really worth having these type programs? And I believe that I think we have programs at different institutions that have very low subscription rates, but the cost of maintaining that program probably remains high. I think what we have to realize in an ever more challenging economy is that we can't be all things to all people. And I think sometimes we have to choose where we can get the greatest return on investment for the expenditure of our funds. So doing an in-depth scrubbing of current spending, of current programs, is I think the first place that I'd look if I was charged with trying to eliminate the SIF. The second thing that we wanted to look at is that if you look at state appropriations, in 2009, the state was funding 67% of the funding formula through appropriations. But because of the decrease in revenue, and there's a graph in your packet that shows this on a year-by-year basis, it fell pretty drastically until 12, and then it leveled off. But it went up a little bit. But in FY 2021, we're at 48% in appropriations. We're at 48% of the state funding formula. So, you know, you're looking at a 18% decrease over 19% decrease over 12-year period. So we believe it's justified to ask the General Assembly and the Governor's office as a portion of backfilling this to try to, as is possible, to reinstate part of this funding. The other thing that we need to look at is if you look at, as I said, about the fee itself, because it's spent solely for general operating expenses, it really is more of a tuition than it is a fee. And I think we need to reclassify that as tuition. And we may get a negative news story. Lindsay Tippins is standing up here saying we need to raise tuitions, but total expenditures are total expenditures. I do think that one of the benefits of just classifying it as tuition is that it makes it eligible for payment under HOPE. And we have a funding source for that, and I talked with President Riley about this and told her, you know, I don't want to say we're going to take it out of HOPE Scholarship without doing a financial study on sustainability of HOPE. But again, those are the aspects that need to go into the crafting of legislation, not necessarily that would go into the drafting of a study committee report. I think the basis of the study committee report is our main objective in this is to eliminate the special institutional fee because of its nature. We have some other recommendations in there that are just, I feel like, common sense recommendations. The first one was a pro rata fee assessment. And as it stands right now, our part-time students have a disproportionately high percentage of their cost in fees. And we would recommend that there be a tiered approach to that. I think it's any student that's taken over 5 hours has to pay full load of fees. And what the objective would be was those students who are forced to go to school part-time, their cost of education would not exceed greatly the cost of students who are enrolled full-time, because we realize that some of these students that are going part-time are there because of economic reasons and also family pressures, and they can't go full-time. So I don't think they need to be penalized financially to do that. So we'd look to try to adopt I think a tiered fee schedule would be more, I think it would be more logistically feasible than just saying we're going to assess X amount of dollars for each credit hour taken. Because I think you have to realize in the first tier of fees, just like in any business, you have to pay a certain amount of money to keep the doors open. And in these fees, I think that's evident. But that's, again, issues that need to be taken up as legislation is drafted. It was suggested that, and is suggested, that we have a broader fee structure committee representation, that the graduate students, the part-time students, and the parents or guardians, whoever's having to pay the bill for fees, needs to be involved in these discussions. One other thing that I forgot to mention, on the mandatory fees, was the fact that we realize the full tuition and fees is probably a stretch for anybody going to school in today's environment, and we're looking at the long-term debt that many students incur, and this is one reason that we want to do everything we can to make this affordable as possible. Second thing, or third thing, is standardize the terminology of fees. I think there needs to be a clear understanding of fees and how they're going to be used throughout the university system. And then lastly, increased transparency. I know the legislature passed some legislation this year that had to do with fees. I think we need to have an accounting of fees collected, balances that are accumulated, and any transfer of fees among accounts. I think the legislature was pretty clear in its intention this year as it had to do with environmental fees and tire fees, other fees that are collected. It was the will of the legislature to say, we don't mind collecting fees, but we think they need to go, they need to be dedicated to the purpose for which they're authorized. So I think the legislature would like to see that. That being said, is just kind of an overview of the recommendations. I'll open the floor to any questions or comments or whatever that the committee may have.
Go ahead.
Pardon?
I was letting her speak first.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't. What mic is it? 9. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just say that I really appreciate the work this committee has done. Mr. Chairman, I've really enjoyed working with you and the opportunity to take a really in-depth look at this. As you said at the beginning, without coming to this table with our ideas already planned out, we didn't really know where we were going to go with this committee, and I appreciate that approach. Chancellor, I've enjoyed working with you as well. You bring so much experience to the table and knowledge, and just your open-mindedness and just the willingness to say things as they are. I really appreciate that. And President, is that your title of the Georgia Student Finance Commission? It's been a pleasure to meet you, and I look forward to working with you more on other issues as they pertain to the Georgia Student Finance Commission. So it has been a pleasure. I'm pleased with the recommendations, and I look forward to continuing to work on this issue on behalf of our university students in the state of Georgia.
Any comments?
Absolutely. I think I'm 7. Sorry. So I really echo most of the comments that you made, Chairman and Senator Harold. Appreciate being at the table and working with the Senate and President Riley. What I also really appreciate is your openness and understanding that our 26 institutions are very different, and understanding that we really don't have the ability, from my perspective, to cut $230 million, because I do think it would have a negative impact, especially around our access institutions who are already experiencing a decline in enrollment. We've had conversations over the last couple months, and also your understanding that at the end of the day, we do have to have some flexibility, because there's always going to be something that happens on the campus, and we have to be able to, regardless if you like it or not, there's going to be times where we're going to have to shift funds to be able to deal with the situation. It's not that we intentionally do things like that, but again, things happen, and we have to be able to be nimble and address it and ensure that our institutions continue to move forward. Look forward to working with our board on these items. Obviously, some of these items do require board approval, and also ask for flexibility on the timing for us to be able to work internally and for us to be able to work with our 26 institutions over the next few months. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and I'll say this, the Chancellor has been very, very open to working and talking through these issues and coming up with workable solutions. I can assure you, I've seen some study committees that I was of the belief that the report was written before the first meeting was ever held. That was not the case here, and I appreciate the university system's willingness to work through this, and I realize that the task is not finished on this, and certainly we understand there'll be some logistical challenges, and we acknowledge first and foremost that our institutions in the state are very, very different, and our rural institutions, and this is covered in the report, our rural institutions that have declining enrollment, that's an especially hard challenge to try to deal with, and we realize that you're not going to be able to take it across the board whack, but you have to have flexibility, especially in an organization that's as diverse as the university system. President Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, members of the committee. I, too, echo your sentiments. It's been a pleasure to learn from you during the testimony we've heard and the commentary on this topic. And the Georgia Student Finance Commission is delighted to be able to work with you to evaluate the potential impacts on the HOPE Scholarship Program and sustainable funding for the students that this and some of these recommendations may impact. So looking forward to lengthy conversations and lots of number crunching to ensure that all of our students are served and receive the assistance they need to complete their higher education goals.
Okay. We've had two changes that have been made in the summary testimony, or one in the summary testimony. If you'll look in, if you'll go to that page, it's page 5 of 7. Under meeting 1, second paragraph, the end of the first, the end of the first sentence in the second paragraph, that should read, Acting Chancellor Teresa McCartney of the USG shared that USG's fees and tuition, we're adding and tuition, are lower than the fees. We're going to strike fees and insert those imposed by the university systems in at least 37 states. The other change is the change on
You want to publicly mention that one?
yeah, what, okay.
Page 5. You're striking and take off the box. That's
Okay, another change is on page 5, the third paragraph, 6th line, start of the sentence on line 5 of paragraph 3. She stated that the system is willing to look into certain projects, and we're going to strike, take them off the books, and have, and if feasible, to alleviate the burden of fee increases caused by PPV projects. We are striking, take them off the books.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And the other changes is on page 6 of 7, the change of $240 million to $230 million. Those are all the changes that I know of at this time. We don't have to turn this report in until December the 1st. I'd like for y'all to read over this. If you see any errors in it, if you can find out any way, if you can figure out any ways that it can be made any more clear in different areas, I welcome your input. I do not want to change the principal parts of it without discussing it on the committee, but I've got the authority to make Scrivener changes in the meantime, and I'll be more than glad to do that. If there's no other there's no other comments, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Oh, to entertain, or to entertain. To make the motion. I make a motion to adjourn.
No, we need a motion to adopt the report.
Oh, adopt. That's right.
You're out of order.
See, I've already moved on to my next item in my head.
I know, that's great.
I will make the motion to adopt the report.
Have a motion. Let's clarify, let's say the report as amended.
As amended.
And it wasn't amended, it was as corrected. We have a second?
I second the motion.
Okay. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? Carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We don't need a motion to adjourn. We stand adjourned. Thank you. I know.